RBR, short from Starteen, aka Ryan, and today I'm doing a video basically celebrating 10 years of Scream 4. Yes, it's been 10 years of Scream 4. On April 15th, it was 10 years, and I rewatched it on my Oculus, so I got to see it like in the theater again. Not like in the theater, but like as close as I'm gonna get to seeing it in the theater again. Um, and Yeah, I mean it was a really good movie. But it wasn't great like the first two films. Personally, my opinion. I personally I I love the first two movies. I think that they're near flawless. They're almost perfect horror movies, and I'd almost say Scream 2 is like not only the best horror movie sequel, but it's like one of the greatest sequels. Um, and then there was Scream 3, which that yeah. And then there was Scream 4, and uh, it definitely revamped the franchise, but it definitely still needed a lot of that elements from the first two films that were definitely missing. I like that Marco Beltrami came back to score Scream 4. That's how you pronounce his name. He scored all Scream films, and I think he did a really good job with this. What I didn't like is you didn't hear Sydney's theme, you know, or the classic chase theme that you heard in the first two films. More, of course, more the first one, but that dun 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 dun, like I don't know, that chase music was like really awesome, and there's a lot of nostalgia with it. It was just the music was very much the story, very much the characters. Like Marco Beltrami definitely um, was another character. His music was another character in that storyline. That's how important the music is in the Scream series. And so, hearing his music, seeing Wes Craven's name, that Ken Williamson wrote it. Now, he didn't write the final draft, he wrote a rough draft. Aaron Kruger took over the screenplay um, right before they like started filming the movie, and he did like rewrites of like characters and changes, and the actors weren't happy about it. Um, and They wanted Kevin Williamson to come back to complete his draft of Scream 4, but he wanted to, I guess he was contracted to Vampire Diaries. I don't know. Um, but I remember worrying how the film would turn out with the lack of Kevin Williamson's involvement, because he was heavily involved in the first two films, and look how great they turned out. So I don't think it was all Wes Craven. It was a lot of Wes Craven, but it's almost like you needed both. You needed Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson. You needed both of them to collide. And I was very happy to see both their names, at the end of Scream 4, directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson. And that's the last time we'll ever see that, too. So rest in peace to Wes Craven. It's still sad to this day. He passed in 2015, and he changed horror. To me, he was the master of horror. I know people will say John Carpenter, because I know he created Halloween and The Thing and The Fog. Well, he didn't create it. He didn't create The Thing, but he made the remake that was really good. But I know he's made a lot of classics that did change the genre. Um, Wes Craven, though, I mean, to come up with something like A Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, and create a character like Freddy Krueger, And then you go to another horror franchise later and you create, not create, but you bring to life this character that was from another writer, but you brought it to life like in your visual style. And he brought us Ghostface, what he looked like. I mean, it could have been any other director that could have been picked for Scream 4, and not Scream 4, just Scream. Um, and it's such a funny story that when Wes Craven was looking for the mask, he just saw it somewhere. It wasn't like right there in front of him. He just saw it, and he just like knew that was the mask. And Wes Craven was just a genius with that stuff, with how a movie is supposed to be visually represented, how a movie is supposed to look visually and sound visually and everything visually for a slasher film. He knew how to make slasher films, and he was the best at it. And when Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven would work together, they were that collab was too bad we didn't see more of it. I mean, their collaboration was amazing. I mean, to Kevin Williamson's dialogue, to Wes Craven's direction, like it was like they needed both, to create such an epic series. So I think that's where things fell flat with Scream 3, but then we get to Scream 4, and uh, I could tell that there was a lot more Kevin Williamson in this story, his writing, than Scream 3. It felt a lot more like Kevin Williamson was involved in this one. Uh, the killers of the movie, the Ghostface reveals, were leaked online uh, before the movie came out. So it kind of was it all was sort of ruined for me. I I knew one, I knew the main one. I didn't know the other one though, but it was obvious. But at least I didn't know that though. But I kind of could guess. But anyway, so there's no well, spoiler warning. If anyone hasn't seen Scream 4, it's been around for 10 years, so check it out. I would recommend it if you're a big Scream fan. So the killers were leaked online, the Ghostface killers, and it was revealed that Jill and Charlie were. The one that got leaked mainly was Jill. I actually didn't know about Charlie till I didn't know that that was leaked until after I saw the film. So the this is making a move moment was very surprising because I did not expect that at all. Um, uh, I mean, it wasn't like shocking, you know, but it's just when you don't know who the killer is, and you guess all these different characters, it's just always a wowing moment just that it's actually revealed. Wes Craven was so great at that. Like, I worry about any future directors, with the killer reveals or any of those moments, because, like, Wes just crushed it and it flowed. I don't know. I don't know. But, uh, I knew Jill was Ghostface before I even saw the movie, but, I mean, it was obvious, though, like, Charlie and Jill, that was pretty obvious. You think that they would, I don't know, go with characters you wouldn't expect, you know. Um, but Jill, I mean, I still say that to this day that's Emma Roberts' best movie performance. I did like her movie performance. I did like her role because she played off Psycho really well, and very manipulative and twisted, and very much like this generation. Um, she just crushed it. And I was at the edge of my seat with her killer reveal when she took the mask off. I knew, you know, but just to see that, like, see it live action on the big screen, and I saw it opening night with my friends and my family, and it wasn't like a packed audience, but it was big enough, and I was like, wow, I'm in the theater for a Scream film, and I'm with the Scream audience. Like, it was one of the coolest things ever. But I was thrown off by the projection. The lighting was very dark in this movie. if you pay attention to the first three films, um, they have a very natural lighting to them, and I don't know because they were shot on film, which makes me wish that they would just film all the Scream movies in film. You know, it's sad that film costs that much, which is why so many movies are made in or shot in digital. Um, and I'm not like against digital. It's just some movies film's better. I really like film, you know, and film can go through a whole HDR converted process, and you know it'll look great. Like uh, it's like some of the greatest looking films are shot on film, you know, and the importance of film for horror films is very important because I remember growing up with a lot of horror films, but those were all shot in films before today's digital era. You know, so you watch all the classics like the Nightmare films or the Friday films, Halloween. Those were all shot in film, and I definitely felt like there was something lacking when I first saw it, and that was one of the things that was lacking was that it was either partially or a lot shot in digital or or all shot in digital. I think Wes Craven was trying to mimic film with that movie, and he was trying to I think he filmed it in film and digital, but uh, Scream is definitely meant for a 24 frames per second uh, film. You know, it's supposed to be a film. So that threw me off that it didn't have the same kind of contrast and saturation and brightness that the first three films had, which was very simplistic. Wasn't overdone. There wasn't all these kind of colors to it, you know. And there's some movies that do need proper color correcting and color grading and to set the tone of the movie. But since the Scream films had a certain tone, the look of it fit as well because these movies were shot like you were looking at real life. You know, like the lighting wasn't too, you know, I don't know. I just like how the first three were filmed. Even though I don't like Scream 3, I liked how it was filmed though. Uh, but anyway, so we get past the whole film element of the movie, how the movie was shot. Let's get to the characters. Um, it was great to see Gail and to see where her story went after three because I was wondering where is by Scream 4 I'm like, all right, where's Gail's life at now, where's her career at? And before Scream 4 came out I thought Gail um, was still a reporter, and I thought Dewey was doing something else, not a sheriff. I didn't think he was the sheriff of Woodsboro, so that surprised me a bit. um, Gail not doing basically her living in Woodsboro and not be able to really do what she used to do. Um, that was the most interesting to me, honestly. Of all the original three characters, I feel like Gail should have been the most focused on. Her story was the most interesting. That she had, you know, she was like so popular in the 90s, and she had these books, and she was a reporter, and she had all these people that always ask her questions. And if you go back to the old movies, you know, she was a very popular person. Um, uh, and you see her in four, and you know she's like nobody cares in that town. That's Gail Weathers. You know, like I love when she wants to go be a part of the cinema club in the movie, and they don't care about her. They care about Sydney. You know, everyone's like, "Where's Sydney at?" And she hates that. You know, Gail does have, I think, a form of jealousy of Sydney. Not, I don't think in the early films. I think they just didn't get along. Um, and then they eventually got along, which was nice to see. By the end of Scream 2, they became friends, you know, or at least very strong acquaintances. Um, but Scream 4, um, you know, Sydney talks about, you know, she doesn't blame Gail, and it's in the past, and that was cool. And and just to see Gail not know what to do. She doesn't know what to write. She doesn't know what to do with her life after everything, because she was, she already like lived up to her potential. She did everything, you know. So it's kind of like, what do I do now? In this small town. And so I really like Gail's plot in the film, and I like that she didn't put up with the kids, and their attitude and all that. Like she just like I love that I still got it moment. And are you familiar with the phrase "I wrote the book on this"? Like I can just still remember it. Um, and then there was these new characters, um, like the two cops, like two good actors, by the way. Too bad they were given the worst roles in this movie, and they're the most like that. Oh man, that was Anthony Anderson, and then what, the guy from Ready or Not? Like that could have been so like they could have been really good characters in this movie, and they could have delivered really good performances, and could have brought something. And they were just like the cops that are like dumb in movies that make the dumb decisions. Like I can't believe they were written that bad. Like that's probably my biggest complaint is how the cops were written in this movie. Because then Hicks was, what was that? And she's back in Scream 5. I'm sorry, but like I laughed when I saw that. Like Deputy Hicks is back. Like okay. She is one of the worst characters of this franchise, and like they have that really cringe-worthy scene where she's like, "Oh, have one of my lemon squares," and he's like, "I would be cheating on my diet," and oh man, like it's just like in the music in that scene, and like I don't know, it was just weird, and like, and then Deputy Hicks is all of a sudden weird with Sydney later on. She's in the shadows, in the dark, after she was in Jill's room talking to her, and she's just like, and she Sydney's caught off guard, like Sydney's thrown off, like, and Sydney's strong by this point, like it takes a lot for Sydney to be wowed by anything. So I think she was very uncomfortable with Hicks, because Hicks was like, "Oh, well, we went to school together. We were in a play. You were Tiger Lily. I played this character." Like, okay. She's like, "I'm sorry, that was a long time ago." Just don't want to talk to her. Um, and she's just like, "It was nice to see you again, Judy." Like, I just love that part. And and then yeah, like I don't know, but if Hicks does become one of the ghost faces in the next movie, that actually would be really cool, because there was already a sketchy moment with Sydney and Hicks. Like Sydney already didn't catch good vibes about her from the beginning. So maybe it would be interesting. Like I think where the plot's gonna go is that Gail and Dewey are gonna be uh, divorced, which I don't think for the actors that's going to be hard for them to act, you know. But oh man, Gail and Dewey not married anymore. Um, it's like, can any characters in anything ever be happy? Like it's always got to be sad. It's always got to end tragically. Like, jeez, like I mean, hey, I mean that's life, but ah, doesn't mean everybody always wants to see reality every day. Um, but I'm thinking that Gail and Dewey are going to get divorced, and he's going to get with Hicks, and they're going to get together. And then uh, one of my theories is that Hicks will manipulate Dewey, and she is one of the ghost faces. I don't think it's one ghost face in this one. I think it's two. It's always two anyway. Um, if not three. I would not be surprised if there are three ghost faces, but there still hasn't been that Scream film where there's like a cult following, where there's like multiple ghost faces, multiple copycat ghost faces, and I just imagine a shot of like four ghost faces, you know, like five in one scene, and they're all up against this one victim and they're running away trying to survive, you know. And that would be pretty intense, you know. Uh, but I do like the simplicity. We still haven't even gotten a scene in a Scream film where it's you see two ghost faces in one scene together. And yet, for three out of the four Scream films, it was always two ghost faces. So that would be really cool if we got a moment like that in Scream 5 where we see two ghost faces over one in a scene. So we know that there's two ghost faces. So in Scream 4, Sydney comes back to Woodsboro after 10 years, which is so hard to believe that. You're telling me for 10 years she did not go back to Woodsboro. And there wasn't even a mention that Gail and Dewey would visit her in those 10 years. They weren't like, hey, you're living here and we just saw you like a year ago. And that, don't you remember that? Like, there wasn't any like, hey, we're going to tell the audience what's been going on for 10 years kind of thing uh, with Sydney's living situation. Like, because they go so much into Sydney's living situation in Scream 3, I felt like, wow, this has become such an important part of the story now, I guess. So we're supposed to know where she lives. And you know what? Like, it made sense that Sydney went into hiding over writing a book. It honestly did. Her trying to hide from Ghostface because here's the thing: it's not one man. You know, it could be anybody, and it could be another person, another person, another person, another person, and Sydney. Imagine what that would do to your head. You couldn't trust anyone ever again. Like you couldn't. Going through that two times in a row. Like by the time she's in hiding in Scream 3, I don't blame her. It's realistic. I mean, she should have. I mean, she could have gotten better fencing because Ghostface could definitely jump over that. But she I'd like to see that she, you know, was being very secure, you know, like protecting herself with like alarm doors and anything she could. You know, she even had a guard dog. Like that is very Sydney after the first two. 10 years later, for Sydney to just want to write a book and come back to Woodsboro, I don't know. I didn't buy it. Like that's the reason Sydney comes back. I mean, and it literally took her 10 years to write a book about this too. And I never looked at Sydney. She never came off as like a writer or someone that was like artistic or anything like that. Like, um, I don't know, it just didn't feel like her character. Um, and I knew Sydney's character before Scream 4, like from the previous film, so it was it just felt weird. The only character that felt out of the original three that felt intact, the plot, was Gail, because it made sense. It was realistic. She was miserable. It was interesting and entertaining. Uh, then you have all these kids in the storyline. You know, You have Jill and Kirby, and then you have all their friends. And I like Kirby. Kirby was a very good character. Very good screen character. And what a twist that would have been if she would have been one of the ghost faces. Like that actually would have been really cool, because nobody would expect that. You wouldn't expect that. People like, no, no, it's Hayden Panettiere. There's no way. You know, that's that's what Scream is supposed to do though. Like that's what they did with the first Scream film for '96 with Matthew Lillard is I'm trying to pronounce his name right. Um, his that killer reveal is still the best to this day. You know, when he says "surprise Sydney," you know, with the voice changer. I wasn't expecting that at all. That was shocking because he didn't come off as a ghost face. By the time I saw Scream, that's when you know he was Shaggy and he was in the Scooby Doo films. So I don't think anyone could really believe that he was Ghostface too. Anyone that never even saw the movie by that point either, you know, because a lot of people still didn't see Scream till after the '90s as well, and a lot of us know him as Shaggy. So him being all funny in the first film, I just thought, he's a comedian, so uh, that's that. I was not expecting that when I first saw the movie. Now, Scream 4, I mean, Scream 2 even had this Debbie Salt, her fake name. Oh my God, Miss Loomis, Billy's mom. Um, well, Jackie from Roseanne. She was great. She didn't even blink ever. Like in that kill reveal, she didn't blink at all. If you pay attention, like she was psycho, but she did a really great job because I was not expecting that. Um, so the killer reveals used to be really shocking. Now in Scream 4 they weren't so much. But it was a good sequence. I liked how the room. I liked how the house looked. Kirby's house. To me, the Kirby's house is almost as iconic now as the house in the first Scream film, especially that her house is in Woodsboro as well. So I wonder if like they'll go back to Kirby's house, ever in the plot again. I don't know. It was a neat house. It had all the red on the walls too, which fit like like the element of like blood and the and all that and carnage and stuff. Like I definitely it was a great set. It was a great house for the third act. And but it wasn't the very end of the movie because then we get to the hospital and Jill is she almost got away with killing Sydney and getting away with everything. And then Sydney is recovers in surgery and uh, and then when Jill finds out that she survived, she goes right to the hospital. She goes right to her hospital room and starts strangling her. And then, oh God, like gets her in the stomach really bad with the stitches. Like, oh man. Um, and then she messes up Dewey, which was entertaining. That was actually really good. Um, and then, oh my God, when she shoot Hicks, uh, and then Gail, that was such a great moment. Um, when she's like, "Can I just have one final word? Clear, clear, clear." Like I'll never forget that moment. That was so great. And you in that line, you forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't f with the original. I love that. I love that. Um, so that was all great, and there's a lot that I really enjoy about this movie, and I like that. I think my favorite is the very opening sequence of the movie. I think the opening, I don't want to say it's the best opening of all the Scream films, but it's really good because it starts with that stab. It's so cool the tribute they did to the stab movies, like that was cool. Um, because that's something you wouldn't expect the franchise to go into after the third movie, Stab, when that was very much a talkative thing with the characters in the second and third film. Um, so that was cool that was like they brought the Stab whole concept back, but like in this opening where you have Stab 6, Stab 7, and then it goes to the real opening of the movie, and yeah, it was cool because it was like a movie within a movie kind of thing, but it's definitely a Scream opening, which is what we did not get with Scream 3. That is the weakest opening. And how sad, like that you just kill off Cotton in the very beginning of the movie, like that. Like I get it, like maybe 30 minutes in, or something, but like right at the start, like just I didn't get that movie. That's why I'm not talking about that one. But and that Hollywood shot when the movie starts with the helicopter. I mean, oh God. Anyway, uh, I really enjoyed how this ending was. It it didn't really end with like the main three all happy at the end. There's an alternate ending, but that was cut from the film. Don't know why, but okay. It ends with a shot of Jill. It ends with a shot of Jill still dead, and I guess hinting, that she could still be alive and come back. I don't know. Um, but uh, wear the vest, save your chest. Certain moments in this movie that I didn't like, I didn't like how the writing of Jill's mom, uh, which was Sydney's aunt. You think that she would have been a very important character to this, and could have added a lot to the story. And instead, there's only this one scene with her where she's like, "Her mom was my sister. I have scars too. Nobody asked me about my scars." Okay, and and then Jill's like, "She means knife scars, mom." Oh, well then, fine. It's like, who wrote this? Oh, yeah, that's right. The writer of Scream 3. Um, but oh man, what a waste potential, Like that's Cindy's relative, like family member. That's her aunt, and she is barely given any screen time, and then is just killed off. Like, what is that about? Um, and then I think what I did like was the stabathon sequence. I really like the stabathon sequence, where they're all having like the event, because that's when you hear a lot of music from the second film. It takes you back to the opening of the Scream. It takes you back to the opening of Scream 2, and that nostalgia. So you hear it in the background, and you hear this music, and while Gail is setting up all these cameras, and you don't even need actual music in that scene. It was brilliant. It was in the background, and it's of course the same music composer. It was just brilliant sequence when Gail takes off the mask, and I love that part. And I love when she fights Ghostface. I was surprised that they cut out the line, "Go ahead if you have the guts." You know, that would have been a really good line. Uh, just yeah, because I remember that in the trailer. I was like, that's a good line. That's like her best line so far. "Go ahead if you have the guts." So the trailer, like, that was good. And then in the movie, it's just, he fights her and then gets her in the shoulder, and that's that. Even though, and that was a flaw with this movie. Ghostface was too tall in this film. Uh, both killers in this movie were nowhere near the height as the stunt guy who plays Ghostface in this movie. Um, they should have gotten someone that wasn't as tall, so it could have blended in with who that it could have been anyone as Ghostface, because you're more so to guess that it's Jill's boyfriend or someone who's really tall. Um, and then we find out it's Jill, and she is not that tall, And I see Jill really struggling to fight Gale, because Gale's fought Ghostface. How many? She got him in the face with a phone in the second one. Like, I don't know. And then so yeah, I mean the opening was very creative, and it sucks you into, like, where's this gonna go? Where's this story gonna go? And then I think the actress that played Rebecca, who is Sydney's publicist, she actually did a good job, because she did come off as one of those characters in the Scream films that you don't like. They're one of the characters that are like, nah. Um, and but she did a really good job. Like, I like her scene with Gail, and any scenes she had with Sydney, like, they felt very um, real. She felt like an actual publicist. Very full of herself and all about money, and not about what is going on really. And I like when Sydney fires her. I love that part. That was great. Um, and I like the parking lot sequence a little bit. think it, I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me at all. I mean, and the fact that they even reshot this sequence wows me as well. Because you think they would have done it differently if that was the case, and they did. But it was like, okay, so she goes into her car, she gets a call from Ghostface, she doesn't answer it, she starts the car, then he appears on her window, and then he all of a sudden disappears, and she gets out of the car when it's not like something happened to her tires. When they go into that in movies, like when a character can't escape, it's because there's something wrong with their tires or the car can't start or something. And I guess her car couldn't start, but it's she gets out of the car and then just is in the parking lot when nobody's in the parking lot. By the way, it's only her, and and then it just starts to go off, and and then she runs to the door and takes and rips the handle door off, and then Ghostface stabs her in the stomach, and then he throws her all the way onto a van. I mean, okay. I don't know, just some things in this movie where I'm like, oh, but I really enjoy the body count. I love Roger Jackson's dialogue as Ghostface. Any scenes like with Sydney, you know. Um, if you notice, there's not really any scenes with not really many scenes with Gail and or Dewey on the phone with Ghostface. Um, I can't really think of really that many scenes to any. I mean, it's always Sydney, but it would be fascinating, right? If like Gail got a call from. Imagine if it was like swapped in the storyline where because Gail was such a popular reporter and she's the only one that's like that popular in a small town like Woodsboro, she becomes a target, and it's all about maybe one of her relatives, and Sydney, like the new Ghostface in this one, Sydney is not even an important character to this Ghostface. Like Ghostface doesn't care about Sydney. He or she cares about Gail, and she's like the main target, and so Sydney has to like help Gail. That is a lot more intriguing and a lot more original than just, oh, we're gonna go ahead and do it. We're gonna write a new family member storyline. Oh, you have what I never had, so I'm going to go on a rampage and uh, you know, like I said, I liked Emma Roberts' performance as Jill. She did a great job, and she played off Psycho very well. I just, it really have to be a relative. It's kind of scary when it's not, when it's just some person. It's actually scarier if they're not related. Um, Even though I couldn't imagine that being in that situation, it would be horrific either or. If it was your family or not your family, that's gonna do a lot to your brain. But it was sad when Sydney got stabbed, and I thought maybe she did die in that third act, but she didn't. So I was um, proven wrong, which I was happy about. And you know what? Scream 4 set up Scream 5 and Scream 6. And it's Scream 4 is the first chapter in the sequel trilogy. The first trilogy was Scream 1, 2, and 3, and now the sequel trilogy will be Scream 4, 5, and 6. Now, 5 and 6 will not be called 5 and 6 because Hollywood doesn't like to number movies anymore for some reason. Even though the Fast and the Furious movies keep getting numbered. We'll ignore that though. Um, Scream 5 is going to be called Scream, and then Scream 6 is going to be called, I don't know what. Probably Scream again. I can't think if they don't want to call it Scream number anything, it's going to be called, Scream again. I can't think of any other title. Or Scream Kills? Or Scream Twice? I don't know. They'd be better off calling it Ghostface, or Ghostface Returns or something, Um, just to call it Scream, they should have stuck to Scream 5, and you know what? And it wouldn't have hurt this box office at all. It really wouldn't have hurt this movie at all. Like, did it hurt Scream 2? Did it hurt Scream 3? Did it hurt Scream 4? No. Sure, they didn't nowhere near make as much as the first movie, but they all made their money. And even though Scream 4 could have made a lot more, it still made almost 100 million worldwide, and that was 2011 when I remember when how bad the economy was during then, um, because everybody would talk about how bad the economy was, and even in that time, it still made that much money, and it yeah, it wasn't in the theater for like 2 months. At my theater, it was probably a month, and that was it. But it made its money, and um, yeah, it didn't. I really hope um, Paramount changes their mind, with promoting, uh, distributing Scream 5, from and actually call it Scream 5. I hope they don't go with Scream. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's my video about 10 years of Scream 4. It's amazing that we've got to. It's amazing that it's been 10 years of Scream 4 and that we're at where we're at. That that wow, this movie has been around that long. And think about when that movie came out, all the Scream fan films that came out. My first Scream fan films came out then, and plenty of other fan films. So, uh, yeah, it's history. But that's my review. Not review. That's kind of, but I've already reviewed this movie 10 years ago, so I'm just doing a celebration video. But that's my video, 10 years of Scream 4, and I'll talk to everyone soon. Alright, peace.